Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is for you. Thank you all for tuning in to your daily dose of Donkey with Ginger. I'm your host, the Viking Donkey, once again joined by the one and only Mutant Gingy to bring you a little sports talk, Gingy. Off-season football, but hey, there's still some stuff going on.
Yo, Mutant Gingy in the house. Heck yeah, football's year-round, Donkey. Especially if you're a Steeler fan.
True.
But
There was a little bit of news you wanted to talk about the Steelers, I'm feeling, huh?
yeah, the only news this week's a little bit of drama out of Southern California. I'm sure most of the Steeler fans now have seen or at least heard about this little Chase Claypool incident, this little bar fight incident. And you know, Donkey, you made a good point when we're talking earlier. He's a young man. You know, things happen. We don't know what happened. We weren't there. However, you know, sorry if as a Steeler fan, I'm a little gun shy around wide receivers with possible character problems. Okay? We've recently seen an all-decade wide receiver go the way of the prima donna and Antonio Brown. Good on him for turning it around and keeping his career alive, of course. But, you know, when you see events like this in the offseason, Donkey, it makes you wonder. And we're not going to, throw him away just aside yet. You know, as more information becomes available, obviously opinions can change and whatnot. But I don't know, Donkey. It presents me with some concern. What do you think?
I hear you, but he's what, 22, 23-year-old kid. From my understanding was he didn't start anything. He was jumping in to help a friend. I mean, okay, I'm that kid. I've been there. I've been a hothead. I've been competitive. I've done stupid stuff. I've been in things very similar to bar fights, baby. Even bar fights, I plead the fifth. But, yeah, it definitely doesn't look good. But let's be honest here. He was just a dumb kid that made a dumb move. And honestly, the bigger problem I have is, bro, you kicked a dude laying on the ground. Like, come on, man. Don't be a bitch. Like, that's such a bitch move, dude. You don't kick people when they're on the ground. I have a problem with that just out of principle. But honestly, he was just a young kid doing something stupid, trying to stand up for his friend. I am just super thankful he didn't do like that OU wide receiver and end up fighting some MMA dude in the bathroom and getting his eye almost ripped out. Because, bro, this could have been a lot worse than what it was. It was a stupid incident with a young kid. I mean, everyone's going to make mistakes. He lives in the limelight. It's a little harder to get away with it when you do that, but I'm not reading anything into it, man. I'm just thankful that no one seems to be seriously hurt. If he ends up having to pay a fine because he assaulted someone, so be it, but there could be worse things. I mean, New Orleans just had Lattimore get arrested with a stolen gun stuff somewhere. I mean, so it could be worse. At least all things seem to be a good chance for him to learn, right?
Let's hope so, Donkey. I hope so. I hope it's not a pattern of things to come. Because that young man certainly looks like he's in a prime position to develop. And of course, I want to echo your sentiment that nobody allegedly was seriously hurt in this type of incident. You know, that type of foolishness that goes on in bars late at night, Donkey. You know what I'm talking about. Not necessary.
Brewskis and young immature kids do not lead to good results. As a person who's done it before, I know this all too well. And yeah, that is what it is. I mean, it could have been worse. He didn't end up in handcuffs or anything crazy. So let's go.
It's hard to get on TMZ when you're in the gym working out, and that's where I prefer that the young man would be. But what are you gonna do?
Throwing these drosses over here like I'm Ben Roethlisberger, bro. It is not looking pretty for Donkey right now, man. Oh boy. It is very, very, very not looking elegant over here. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how I feel about it. It is what it is. I hope this refocuses him to the life. But at the end of the day, people are allowed to have a life. I'm not going to harp on him for doing it. I really wish this wouldn't have come out. I mean, you think about it, and all the old Yinzer fans, I can hear them now going, this wouldn't have happened in our day. Yeah, right, dude, I heard about the old Steelers going and whooping the crap out of people at the bar. The difference is, not everyone had a phone in their pocket, and not everyone is as change of society. I don't want to say any weird words to push anyone off because I don't feel any way about it. But society's a little different now, and things like this get a lot more attention than they would have in the past.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's the cell phones in every pocket and the access to the internet, and everybody, 250,000 people see it within 4 hours, and, information spreads, and, privacy, there's not much left on that for these high-profile athletes. But that, besides the point, like I said, my main issue here, looking at, how this might affect the team moving forward, let's hope it doesn't become an ongoing distraction.
Yeah, we've been there a few too many times. But
yeah,
let's
like
hope
with folks
nothing's
who
coming
throw
of it.
chairs out of hotels and stuff. Yeah, no, we don't know nothing about that.
People who expose themselves, which, by the way, another team's dealing with a huge issue of that.
Oh my!
Allegedly,
that's out of control in Texas, Donkey. That is out of control.
I don't know what happened, but man, if
I don't want to comment.
What said happened. That's bad. But he's innocent until proven otherwise, man. Let's give him that.
I hear you. But like you said, if what they said happened, that is pretty bad.
Yeah, and for anyone who just wants to call females out, why didn't you put it right away? Why didn't you do this? Dude, I've known a couple girls I know a couple girls in the military who had stuff happen to them, man. A lot of times they don't even want to just talk about it. They want to completely forget it. And I'm not claiming they're right. I'm not claiming he's wrong. I'm claiming we got to let due process happen before you make a judgment. If you have judged already on what has happened here, you're wrong. Because no one knows what happened. No one should be making a decision. We need to let facts come to life. We need to let the judicial process do its right. And anyone who's asking, well, if it was real, then they would have went to criminal court. Dude, it's so much harder to prove these things in criminal court than civil court. And that's why they go to civil court, because you don't want to waste your time where you have to prove without a reasonable doubt that it happened, as opposed to just a preponderance of the evidence, meaning a 51 to 49% more likely than not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what happens before we claim. My only stance is, if he did what he was said to do, that's terrible. I really hope he didn't. I really hope it comes to light that this was all just a little stretch of the facts one way or another. But man, I really hope he didn't do what he said to do, because he seems like a well enough dude. And not only that, I don't want it to be that these girls really went through that. These women went through that. I don't want that Deshaun Watson did that. I really hope he didn't, and I hope it comes forth that he didn't. But if he did, man, I personally, no chance I could respect any team that would employ him after knowing that, if it comes to be true.
I agree. That's pretty much what's covering the news this week.
Yeah, now that we're done with touchy-feely, non-football related football news, let's get to something fun we're going to start doing, which is rankings of certain things. And this week, we wanted to go, since we're Steelers fans, Steelers are a defensive team, we wanted to start with our top 5 defenses from the 2020 season. Next week, I believe we'll be looking into top 5 offenses, quite possibly, unless there's crazy news that's going to take up the whole episode, which could happen. So, schedule's willing to change, but Gingy, top 5 defenses. I want to see where we start at number 5 on the Gingy list.
Number 5 on the Gingy list might throw some people off, Donkey, but hear me out. I have the Indianapolis Colts at number 5. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. All right. Looking at some of the key stats, they have a really, really strong secondary. 4th in interception rate, 5th in yards per game, 7th in passing and rushing yards per game. And overall, solid unit with some younger guys on the line. Darius Leonard in the middle, a guy who's going to continue to develop there. I think that they're a respectable defense in the AFC, and sit at my number 5.
I'm going to go to a number 5 that's going to probably anger quite a bit of our viewing base and saying, oh, you're just a Steeler hater on this one. But I feel the Steelers are number 5 because they didn't perform especially well against top tier offenses. Their sack rate was great, their turnovers were great, but that's not all there is to defense. I know they scored a bunch of points, but I look at a way a team ends the year and favor that more because teams adjust through the year. And to me, what makes a great team is a team that, after every team is adjusted, is still as good, if not better, than they were at the start. And I know injuries could have played a huge part of this, but at the end of the day, the Steelers ranked 5th in points per game while playing one of the weaker schedules. In terms of point reduction, which is essentially you compare what the team that you played scores per average and what you held them to. In terms of point reduction, the Steelers only were 3 points for the season, I believe. On average, held their teams 3 points less than they would have to their season average, and held teams a touchdown below their season average only on 4 or 5 occasions. And one of those occasions was when we played Baltimore without their whole offense. So to me, the Steelers had an elite potential, but realization of elite level play just was not consistent enough through the year. That's why I have the Steelers coming in at number 5.
Fair enough.
Any thoughts? All right.
No, I'll get
On
to the
to-
I get to the Steelers a little bit later on my list, so we'll have some thoughts.
Yeah. On to number 4. Gigi?
Number 4 for Mutant Gigi, another team you might not expect coming out of nowhere, but I think they're another young and developing defense. That Washington football team, Donkey, Chase Young.
I love that defense. I have them on my just miss list. Like if there was 6, they would have been number 6. I love that defense, but I want to hear why you have them here.
That defense, I have a like I said, young, up and coming. Overall, ninth or better in yards per game, passing yards, interception rate. They're all around. And like I said, I like the young defensive lineman. I like folks get after the quarterback, and Chase Young, he's a really good player.
He definitely worth that. What was it, 2 overall status he got? Is that right?
I think
Somewhere
it
in there.
was.
Definitely
Yeah.
top 5 pick. I think he was 2. I love that team. I love that front 7. I can't put them in the top 5, and the reason for me was that secondary was just too weak. Just too many holes coming through the secondary. That front 7 was great, but this year just that secondary just didn't hold par. They just weren't up there for me. But I can't disagree, dude. That was a good defense. That was a good team. You consider, while having a losing record, they made the playoffs mostly because of what that defense did. So, hats off to them. For me, number 4 is the New Orleans Saints. I loved what that defense did. They were just a great, solid team throughout the year. They gave great field position the whole time. They weren't necessarily flashy in terms of turnovers or sacks. But at the end of the day, they only gave up 20 points a game. They were the 3rd lowest points per game. And if it wasn't for just the fact that I had such a bad taste with them in my mouth due to the playoffs and the way the season kind of ended, they weren't performing quite as great. They'd probably be number 3, but I had to put them in the list in the top 5, so to me, they came in at 4.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you there.
I know you can't, because as we segue to number 3, you can explain to me why my 4 team is there.
Because on my list, I have the New Orleans Saints at number 3, and they're a shutdown secondary. Lattimore back there, man. You mentioned him earlier in a not so great way, but I'm going to mention him now in terms of his performance performance on the field. Speaking here, as we are a football talk. Stellar, dude. He's up there in top 5 DBs for me. He's up there in the same talk as Stephon Gilmore. Guys like that. Stud, Donkey. Stud.
I can feel that. Number 3 to me is one that a lot of people can argue with, and a lot of people can be like, the hell are you doing? That wasn't even that great of a unit. But they did come in at 7th in points per game, and I think it's a team that came on strong, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. Once those young cornerbacks and young safeties really started feeling the system at the end of the year, Todd Bowles' system looked great. that defense looked great. And that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers out there with Ndamukong Suh in the front, leading the way with Jason Pierre, Paul, Shaq Barrett. I mean, they got after the quarterback. That secondary started to come along with guys like Jordan Whitehead and Bunting out there at slot corner. And they really started putting the screws down on people and just letting Tom Brady just not have to make mistakes at the end of the year. I think that defense was one that just came on so strong. And like I said, I think the way you end is so much more important than the way you start. And that Tampa team was one of the best ending the year.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you, Donkey. You were talking about teams that were on your near misses with your Washington football team earlier. That Tampa team was probably the team on my near miss. That's probably a 6 or 7 unit. I really like that linebacker position with Shaquille Barrett there. Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
That's a versatile guy.
All I have to say is, if we would have got Devin White instead of Devin Bush, I don't think I would have been sad if he would have fallen instead of Bush. Bro, could Devin White just run and play?
Yeah.
Like, I think in that Super Bowl, he chased Patrick Mahomes for like 1 billion yards. Like, there's a reason Mahomes scrambled more than any other quarterback during that Super Bowl. Because that Tampa linebacking crew was coming.
Very
That
much
gets
agree.
us to number 2, which, by the way, we have a nice little divisional rivalry going on here with our number 2 choices, Gingy. Let's lead it off over there in Gingy land.
Okay, wave them if you got them, Steeler Nation. I'm putting our Pittsburgh Steelers at number 2 overall defense. Donkey, those first 11 games, you can say whatever you want about player quality of opponent, whatever. The schedule is the schedule, and you got to play the games, and you're either going to win them or lose them. And I find that the Steelers were a very unique defense, and I would call them a made-for-TV defense. Because, I'm going to be honest, they give up some yards.
Flashy.
They give up some plays, splashy in the negative. But I'll tell you what, it's like, if anybody watches previous podcasts, they've heard me talk about Kansas City Chiefs and timing and presence and coming up in that big moment. And that Steeler unit, it has a knack on 3rd and 6, and you need a big stop. Cam Hayward has a knack of just coming up and getting in your face. And that might not register as a sack on the stats or a half sack, right? But that quarterback is going to throw that ball about 1.5 seconds faster than he wants to. And then that unit is going out, to punt next down. Yep. And that is the reason why I put the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 2. They're a made-for-TV defense, man. That TJ Watt on the outside is everywhere all the time. Tackles for loss, forced fumbles. It's the closest thing I've seen to a James Harrison since James Harrison.
Him and Bud Dupree made quite the tandem this year. I loved it. Blitzing into with our corners, our linebackers. The team was really good at getting pressure, really good at confusing people. And to me, at the beginning of the year, just had this tenacity where they just hunted down the ball. I mean, watching Bud Dupree come off backsides, just absolute hustle. I loved it. Watching Alu just eat up interior linemen when they tried to run the ball up the gut at the beginning of the year was so good. But the reason they slipped for me was just that bad taste of the way they started performing around week 8 or 9. It just felt like they really started slipping and then just fell off a cliff when Dupree left. I mean, I know it wasn't that bad, but they were still a top 10 unit. But just the slip at the end when it felt like teams really started to realize how to defend the Steelers a little better, which was, hey, let's not try to take shots anymore. We're going to try to protect the ball and make the Steelers offense beat us. It really started to expose the defense a little bit when they weren't able to make those splash plays. And to me, that's why they wouldn't be a top 2, just barely reaching the top 5. I love what they did. And when they were making splash plays, dude, they were as good as anyone. That was a Super Bowl quality defense. But once the splash plays stopped, whether you want to say injuries led to it or a poor offense, the fact of the matter is they just stopped and the defense just wasn't the same without them.
In fact,
unfortunately.
I would cite both of those things as the reason why that defense stopped, actually. Because when you're on the field 38 minutes a game, 40 minutes a game,
Wears you down a little bit.
Yeah, they were very worn down. Oh, so many times I almost grimaced when the Steelers' offense would go 3-and-out after a huge stop by that defense. Huge stop, made a punt. Steelers first and 10 on the 20. And a 3-and-out. And I'm like, oh my God, they have to go out there again and do it again. Oh my God.
Yeah, our offensive 3-and-outs, dude, I don't even want to get into that.
I mean, they did it when they needed to. They just can't do it every time. But yeah, that's my number 2.
So my number 2 was a team that led the NFL in points allowed per game. And it's a team that I feel didn't do it flashy, but just did it supporting an offense that only tried to run the ball, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. That team, just that secondary was so solid, that front seven was so good at just being in your face and not letting you run the ball, maybe not as flashy getting to the quarterback as we've seen in previous Baltimore teams, but they just didn't let you score. And I know their offense attributed to it, but the fact of the matter is there are other offenses that controlled the clock like Tennessee, whose defenses were a bottom 10 unit because the defense just couldn't do nothing. So don't think that just because a team's good at running the ball means the defense is going to be good. That Baltimore team did everything needed, and I have to give respect to a team, any team in the modern NFL that can hold opponents to under 20 points a game. And that's why Baltimore makes my list. Just what they did, and remember, they had some crazy COVID issues too. What they did, the way they were to do it, that was very impressive to me, and that's why the Baltimore Ravens come in at number 2, lead into the division rivalry.
There it is. We're up to the number 1 pick now.
Well, no thoughts on Baltimore?
Hey, I can't disagree. Baltimore's a good unit, and I agree with you. They faced major adversity and still hung in there. But again, if we're looking at 2020 in just a vacuum of 2020, you have to look at what they put out on the field despite some of the unfortunate hand that they were dealt.
I'm just a little sad, Gingy. The top. I feel your Yinzer came in this one. No respect for the top scoring defense in the league. I believe they were the top scoring defense in the league. Either 1 or 2, but I believe they were 1.
I have no call.
Darn.
Man. I have no call.
All right, so do we want to get to the first agreeance on our list? Would we like to get there at number 1?
We actually agree.
We agreed.
1. Holy
we agreed.
Smokes. Wow. Well, let's reveal it then, Donkey. I believe that it is the Los Angeles Rams at number 1.
Aaron Donald!
Piloted, that fighter jet plane of a defense out there, piloted by Aaron Donald, is a force to be reckoned with, Sir Donkey.
That secondary was feast or famine, but man, were they feasting a lot more than they famined. I believe they were the number 2 points per game defense through the entirety of the 2020 season. You have guys like Hill out there intercepting the ball all the time, scoring touchdowns. I think he scored 3 touchdowns by himself. And you just have, dude, Aaron Donald, I don't even know what to say. I know people are going to be like, well, his pressure rate wasn't as good as some other people, but I've never seen a dude get double teamed as much as he does and just wreck a football game still.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that dude is and I love TJ Watt, and I do think he will eventually win a Defensive Player of the Year if he keeps doing what he does. And people can say he had a better year this year than Aaron Donald. I get that, but I have just, in terms of his career to this point, I have never seen anyone do the things Aaron Donald has done. I know there have been defenders in the past that have done it. I just personally can't remember a dude who's influenced games the way this guy does. Like, you surround that with like a bunch of other All-Pros and a bunch of other first-round picks, and that team just looks, man. There's a reason all those Ram free agents were hot commodities on the free agent market early this year on that defense, dude.
Yeah.
That's my reason for him, Gingy. What you got him there for?
Like we said before, man, Aaron Donald. He's the king right now. Reigning MVP, and he's been that way for 5 years. So that that
Defensive Player of the Year.
Yes, reigning defensive MVP. Yeah.
That's fair
He's a,
since the MVP is an offensive award. I'll give you that.
yeah. I mean, you gotta call him something.
Quarterback award. Let's be honest. MVP is a quarterback award.
It really is. Yeah, exactly. And you know, they've made additions to Jalen Ramsey in the secondary, but you know, looking forward to 2021, I
They
think
should
that
just get
defense
bonus
might be
points for
passed.
just bonus points for best trash talker on the field as well. I don't know why Jalen Ramsey skipped my mind when talking about them, but watching him just absolutely get in people's heads because he doesn't ever shut his mouth is great.
Yeah, I'd say he's probably the best trash talker in the NFL. Would be my opinion.
Oh, could you imagine him like one-on-one with Chad Ocho Stinko or Terrell Owens, dude?
Oh my god, I need them mic'd up.
Oh my god, we need those early 2000 receivers to go against Jalen Ramsey. Like that would be it. That would be all I want.
We need that guy mic'd up.
Oh, that's good. That concludes our top 5 defenses from 2020. Leave comments telling us where you think we're wrong, and if they're good ones, we'll talk about them next week. Leave us your top 5 rankings for offenses, and maybe we'll do what the community feels for top 5 offenses, and what you felt for top 5 defenses, and we can bring up what the community thought about them if you're feeling it for next week. But unless we have anything else coming out of Gingy, I think that about wraps it up here.
I think I'm good on this end, Donkey.
All right, well, if that's the case, then everybody knows you can leave us comments on the YouTube if you want to come watch the VOD. Leave a comment at Twitch. You want to leave a comment on the Twitter. You want to email me your comments. Feel free to catch us on any of the aforementioned things. Viking_Donkey at Twitch. You catch me at Viking Donkey on Xbox Live. I believe I'm Viking_Donkey on Twitter if you want to leave a comment there. And you always can catch Gingy at Mutant Gingy.
Mutant Gingy, Xbox Live. Hello, wave him if you got him, Steeler Nation.
Feel free to come join us playing some games. We'd love to have anybody and everybody coming out, joining the community, giving us your thoughts, because we really want to get this conversation going to more than just our thoughts, because, well, our two dumb old Yinzer heads can only give so much, and especially when one of those heads is anti-ginger, and one of those heads is super ginger. Just saying.
How could you?
I'm just joking, but the Yinzer here always makes it fun. Thank y'all for tuning in. We will catch you next week at your Daily Dose of Donkey with Ginger.
Here we are, Mutant Gingy. Let's go.
Wave them if you got them out there for everybody out there.
Nation. Yeah, thanks. You saved it, Donkey. You saved it.